This is Just One Thing, a series where I'm going to highlight one particular aspect of a game which I think it pulls off remarkably well. This could be a well-executed feature that's representative of a game's overall quality, or it could be one surprisingly decent thing in a game that's otherwise crap. Baldur's Gate 3 definitely isn't crap, however, and there's loads of things about it that I could choose to speak about here. The sheer breadth of it, the extremely well-maintained illusion of player choice that makes it pretty much the most authentic digital recreation of the Dungeons & Dragons experience that's frankly ever been conceived. The fact that it is unashamedly attached to its tabletop roots and revels in that rather than trying to hide the dice rolls in the background like so many other RPGs do. I did consider doing this video entirely on the D20 throwing minigame that pops up every time there's a skill check, because I think it's beautifully designed in the same way that Vampire Survivors is, where it clearly takes inspiration from casino games and the way they're designed to give you a good serotonin hit every time you win. It just feels good, and it's animated in a way that pings with satisfaction, which incentivizes you to keep taking risks even when you lose. But the aspect of Baldur's Gate 3 that I find most interesting and intrinsically appealing is its performance capture, its digital acting. I love the way a lot of it is staged and blocked. There's a lot of melodrama and theatricality to it, which I think is a great choice that once again consciously reflects the game's tabletop roots. Anyone who's played D&D or just watches other people playing it on YouTube knows that the experience is all the richer when the dungeon master really gets into it, you know? When they have a repertoire of voices to call upon and enjoy doing a little bit of acting, it enhances the storytelling, yes, and it adds a real fun factor, yes, but the crucial thing for tabletop gaming is that it breaks the ice and makes it that much easier for everyone involved to also throw themselves into it, and a better time is had by all.
With his mind sharp and his heart dark, Strahd von Zarovich is a formidable foe.
And I think some of that is also true for Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, so the video game doesn't have a dungeon master as such, but in this case the dungeon master is the entire production. And I think players have a great time in this world in huge part because of that theatricality. It allows us to be swept up in its drama and its goofiness, its inherent silliness. No matter how serious the narrative gets, the game never loses its sense of playfulness, that little margin for experimentation that lets players stop in any given situation and think, what would be the most interesting thing to happen here? Or what would be the funniest outcome to this scenario? Giving a little bit of leeway to that role-playing impulse that doesn't ask what would be the most advantageous outcome for my character, but what would be the most fitting, what would be the most ironic, what would be the most memorable. Underpinning all this is some real quality performance capture work that feels very premium. Now, it's not consistently premium quality for the entire game. Some characters are clearly better animated than others, and that's absolutely fine. In a project of this scope, the developers have to make hard decisions about how they divide time and resources, but there is a baseline quality here that's perfectly decent, and then, usually when you're talking to one of the main party characters, you get treated to performance work that's just sublime, rendered with great care and motion capture that seems so fine and granular that it's picking up every single one of the actors' nerves as they fire. It's particularly noticeable when talking to the character of Lae'zel, I've noticed, whose alien facial proportions and bone structure aren't human, and yet you can't help but see a sentient soul behind those eyes, peering at you through layers of CGI bullshit and reptilian twitching. It's masterful work.
You are no less alien to me than I am to you.
And I think the fact that this is in a game as enormous as this is something to be celebrated, really. Sure, you will find better quality performance capture in other places. The Last of Us Part 2, for example, where millions of dollars per pixel has been spent on maintaining a sense of photorealism in incredibly controlled circumstances. But Baldur's Gate 3 is a completely different beast. There's tons of different environments and lighting conditions, player characters can be loads of different races at wildly varying heights, and the camera positioning has to adapt accordingly. There's a lot fewer places to hide, and yet BG3's performances are noticeably of a very high standard. Of course, it's not the first open world or semi-open world game to be notable for its digital acting. If you cast your mind back to the big water cooler game of 2011, L.A. Noire, you might remember a lot of buzz about its pioneering method of performance capture, which involved sitting an actor in a 360-degree panopticon of video cameras which captured every single aspect of their line delivery on terabytes upon terabytes of digital video across every conceivable angle, only to then compress the hell out of it and wrap it around a 3D head at crayon resolution. Look, it impressed a lot of people at the time because people were like, look, that's the guy from Mad Men, and you can tell it's him. Isn't technology something? But everyone kind of pretended not to notice that all the people in L.A. Noire have weirdly flat hair and a fucked up mouth. You can see the lighting rig in their eyes, and don't tell me people didn't notice that, because I fucking did. It was really distracting. I think what Baldur's Gate 3 proves with its performance capture is that, well, unfortunately David Cage was right 12 years ago when he described L.A. Noire's tech as an interesting dead end. Now we have detailed, granular performance capture that allows the subtleties of an actor's performance to greatly enhance a production, even when it has to push through layers of cartoon Shrek nonsense to do so. And though facial acting isn't as crucial for gameplay in BG3 as it was in L.A. Noire, it demonstrates that we're at a point where something like L.A. Noire could happen again, but with more conventional tech that isn't so limited that you have to set the entire game in a decade where everyone wore a fucking hat. BG3's performance capture is just one of many things that the game does well, but it's a good barometer for the quality of the product as a whole, and it also says something about how much of a rarity this game is. How the project was sustained through years of early access on the trust and goodwill that Larian Studios have earned from players over the years by just making good RPGs and not being dickheads about it. They had the time, the funding, and the opportunity to make something enormous and brilliant without any obvious compromises. It's a credit to them that we'll probably never see anything like it again.